Hi, it's Jess from JewelryTutorialHQ.com. In this video, I'll show you how I made these swingy chandelier earrings with several variations along the way. You'll need some ready-made ear wires, 2 small jump rings, these are 4mm 20 gauge, some simple cable link chain, this is 2x3mm oval cable chain, some 20 gauge or 22 gauge wire. Just make sure that it's half hard wire. You'll need 2 center beads. These are some paper beads I made, and if you'd like to see a tutorial for making beads like this, please let me know. I am happy to share that. You'll need some drop beads and some 24 gauge or 26 gauge wire. I'll go through all of the tools as I use them, and of course I'll link everything down below the video with more details. I do want to call out it's important to use eye protection, and especially when working with longer pieces of wire, because if you're paying attention to the working part of wire, you're not really aware what's going on with the end, and usually it is kind of just flipping around everywhere. So please use safety glasses. The first thing I'll do is build the centerpiece. I have straightened some 20 gauge wire, and while it's still connected to the spool, I'll slide on one of my center beads. It seems to waste less wire that way. We need to make sure that the end is a nice flat cut, so I'll use the back of some flush cutters. These are Xuron flush cutters. They're different from the ones I use for finer wire because these are graded for thicker wire like 20 gauge. Now, using my round nose pliers, again, these are a little sturdier than the ones I normally use. Insert the end of the wire into the plier jaws so it's not sticking out. Paying attention to the position on the pliers for the size of the loop, roll away until it comes back and touches the straight part of the wire. I'll insert the tip of the jaws into the base of the loop and bend away from the open part of the loop back towards me as I push on this part of the wire, and that will give me a loop that is centered on the stem, just like that. So we've got a nice round loop. Now slide the bead all the way to the end where it hits the loop, and I usually measure with my pinky so I know where to cut for a loop this size. That's about 1 centimeter. I'll cut here. Again, I'm going to cut with the back of my flush cutters. For the second loop, I want to make it so it's on the same plane as the first loop, and I also want to make sure it opens on the same side. Eyeballing here where I put the wire in the pliers so I can get a loop the same size. Making sure that the end is not sticking out so we get a nice round loop, and roll and reposition your pliers as many times as you need to in order to roll that loop into place, and you know you're good when it comes back and touches the straight part of the wire. Take the pliers out, put them back in here at the base of the loop, and I'll use my finger to press this way while I twist the pliers back towards me away from the open side of the loop. If you're having trouble with this, I recommend checking out the free preview lessons in my wire wrapping for beginners class. I go over this technique in great detail with some really good tips for getting uniform links and loops. Right now, there are 9 free lessons, and I'll share the link below. Now, you'll need to cut your chain. I have already cut 4 pieces that are 1 inch long. They do need to be exactly the same, and that is going to be the top of the earrings. Here I have a piece that is about 1.5 inches long. That is going to be the piece that drapes at the bottom. For this piece, we need to make sure we have an odd number of links so we can put a bead right in the center. You may need to adjust the length of your chain pieces for different size center beads in order to get the right look. For this particular chain, I'm going to cut on the 20th link, so I'm left with 19 links. This will be different for different size chains, so please be aware of that. Now, using my bent chain nose pliers, I'm going to open one of the loops by twisting so you don't create a weak spot in the wire. Now we're going to hook in the last link on the longer chain first, then the last link on one of the shorter chains. Close that up by twisting it back. You can wiggle it back and forth until you get a nice closed loop. Now open the other side, and I usually hold this straight up and down, but so you can see what I'm doing, I'm going to show it like this. We don't want to twist the chain as we attach it, which is why it's better if you can hold it straight up and down. Grab the last link on the longer chain and carefully bring it over and hook the back of that link onto the open loop. The open side of the loop is facing up, by the way. Just do a quick double check to make sure it doesn't look like that piece of chain is twisted. Then hook on a 1 inch piece and twist that ring closed and wiggle back and forth until you get it right where you want it. You should have something that looks like this. Now we'll attach a jump ring to the loose chains to create the top of the earring. I'm going to hold it by the bottom chain and hold it upside down. Again, I would do this when it's hanging straight up and down, but so you can see it, I'll do it like this. Loop the end of one of the chains with the jump ring, and without twisting the chains, link up the other one, and then check to make sure it doesn't look twisted. Now I need a second pair of chain nose pliers. These are tweezer nose chain nose pliers. Any other chain nose pliers will do. I'll twist this ring closed and wiggle back and forth until I get it perfectly lined up. Now we can attach the ear wire to the jump ring. So that's the first earring option complete, but let's keep going. Now I'm going to cut about 12 to 15 inches of 24 gauge wire. This one piece of wire should be enough for all of the drops on one earring. Now I'm going to insert the wire through the bead, leaving about 1 inch sticking out. Fold both sides of the wire up along the top of the bead so they cross over like this with a short piece in front. Not super tight though. The bead needs a little wiggle room so you don't pop off the top of your briolette as you wrap. Using my chain nose pliers, I'll bend the long piece of wire so it's sticking straight up from the center of the top of the bead. Hold the wire between my thumb and forefinger like this and twist the bead around. Then you can trim the end using your flush cutters and tuck the end down with your chain nose pliers. Now I'm switching to my finer round nose pliers. I like these better for finer gauges of wire. I can get smaller loops this way. I'm going to grab the wire pretty close to the coils and bend it towards me so it's about a 90-degree angle. That's close enough. And I'm going to reposition my pliers, so I'm going to get a loop that's about this size. I'll take the long piece of wire and wrap it up, over, and around the top plier jaw until it won't go any further. Then I'll let go and reposition so I can complete the loop by pulling it around and under so that the wire is facing me again. Now we need to find the center link on the chain at the bottom of the earring and hook the open loop into it. Now I'll use my tiny chain nose pliers to hold that loop carefully, making sure not to grab the chain, just kind of put it next to it there and hold the loop while I wrap the wire around. Trim off the extra and save that piece of wire for the next bead and then tuck the ends down. Great. Now that's the second version of this earring done, but I'm going to keep going so I can show you how to place the beads so that they will hang well. What I recommend is to start with these 2 drops and then decide if you want to add the others in between based on how heavy the earrings are, which will be different depending on the beads that you use. These beads will attach to each side of the center link, but here just make sure you're adding the beads on the outside of the chain, not connected to it or overlapping it. And that's earring number 3. Now, if you want to keep going, here's a tip I wanted to share. Make sure you wrap onto the links that are facing towards the front, not the ones that are sideways. Otherwise, your beads will flip and twist the chain and none of the beads will hang straight. That's 4 different chandelier earrings that are all based on one design. If you learned something new today, I would love to hear it. Or if you have any questions, please leave a comment below. And here are some other wire wrapping videos you can watch next. I'll see you soon.